everyone, and welcome. I apologise if my voice sounds raspier than usual. I have spent the last week or so horrendously sick and am still recovering. Writer's block can come in many forms and affects people from fiction writers to non-fiction authors. This topic is likely as old as ideas themselves, and there are many videos and articles on the subject. The point of today's video is not to give a definitive, unbreakable answer to the problem of writer's block, but instead to give as many different examples as I can. The reason for this, I feel, is an obvious one. The methods of one writer won't relate to everyone. What works for one person will often be completely ineffective for someone else. So, join me today as I explore some famous authors and content creators and how they deal with this seemingly universal problem. Stephen King. Strategy? Boredom can be a catalyst. Stephen King is a man who needs very little introduction. Occupying the genres of contemporary horror, thriller, science fiction, and fantasy, he has written 65 books and is still going strong today. In his memoir book, On Writing, King described hitting a wall while working on The Stand. The novel's complex plot and numerous characters had him overwhelmed. He found himself unable to progress despite having already written 500 pages of single-spaced manuscript. King realised that his boredom with the story was the root of the problem. Rather than giving up, he embraced the boredom, allowing it to simmer in his subconscious. Eventually, a breakthrough came, and he was able to unpick the plot and continue writing. For me personally, this would be a very painful way to break through a block, but for some, sticking to it may just be the way to work through. John Steinbeck. Strategy? Write for one person. John Steinbeck was an American author best known for his novel Of Mice and Men and The Grapes of Wrath. His idea was that thinking too much about who the story was for and how it would be perceived can be paralyzing. Steinbeck suggested shifting the focus from the broad audience to a specific individual. This technique helped alleviate the fear of judgment and allowed for more personal and authentic writing. He wrote, "The easiest way to get started is to forget the audience you're supposed to be writing for, and instead write to a single person." Ernest Hemingway. Strategy? Stop at the peak. Ernest Hemingway is another American novelist, short story writer, and journalist. He passed away in 1961 and was best known for his work The Old Man and The Sea for Whom the Bell Tolls. Hemingway's approach was honestly one I had never thought of before. His method was to leave off writing when the story was flowing smoothly. This allowed his subconscious to continue working on the plot, making it easier to pick up where he left off the next day. He wrote, "The best way is always to stop when you are good and when you know what will come next. If you do that every day, you will never be stuck." I personally find this idea kind of horrifying. When I get into the flow state, all I want to do is continue writing. The idea of just stopping midpoint and walking away does not fill me with joy, but hey, maybe this will work for other people. J.K. Rowling. Strategy? Time and distance. Our next author is another who needs no introduction. For some reasons are better more than others, but that doesn't really matter for the purpose of today's topic. During an interview with Claudia Winkleman back in October of 2021, Rowling was asked how she personally dealt with writer's block. This is what she had to say.
I think my remedy would be if I'm having difficulties, which, if I can't quite see the way to do a plot point, I think a very good answer is just to walk away for a while, because I find my subconscious normally comes up with the answer if I just give it a bit of space.
Yeah, go for a walk, fresh air, etc.
Exactly.
I do really like her response to a fan on Twitter. Quote, "Never wait in expectation of perfection or you'll wait forever." In other words, if you keep trying to make your writing perfect, it's never going to happen. Let yourself move on. Me. Strategy, touch and go. Just for shits and giggles, I decided to chuck myself in at the end. As of recording, I have completed 16 books with the word counts ranging from 50,000 words to 175,000 words. As I looked back over that list, a couple really jumped out as books that I really struggled with. For a long time, I was stuck on Helter Skelter, Dragonbound, and the first Homesick book. So how did I deal with it? When I first started writing, I thought the only way I could ever finish a book was to write that one book from start to finish with no breaks and muscle my way through the blank spots. I quickly, painfully discovered that this was not going to work. Instead, I started a writing schedule. I publish 2 chapters a week on a Tuesday and a Friday, and each chapter is from a different book. The ability to flick between different stories was life-changing. I could go from a heavy, high fantasy story that I was struggling with to spend time on a chapter for a light comedy romance. This swapping and changing often led to breakthroughs with the chapter I was struggling with. I also wanted to add a few additional general advice strategies. Whilst not explicitly attributed to any specific author, strategies are commonly used by many people to combat writer's block. Change of scenery. We've all heard how a messy environment can sometimes influence our mental state. If you're stuck, try packing up and going somewhere different, whether that be a park, cafe, or library. Writing in a different environment can stimulate creativity and provide you access to that delicious, addictive coffee. Free writing. Writing without stopping or worrying about grammar or structure can help break down mental blocks. This could start out as a journaling exercise or simply writing down what you see. Exercise. This is another big general piece of advice that we hear all the time to remedy many aspects of our lives. This is with good reason. Physical activity can clear the mind and boost energy levels, leading to increased creativity. Personally, I do find that going for a walk can be very helpful, even if it's just to take a break from the manuscript that I've been glaring at for the last 3 hours. Reading. The basis of this one is that immersing oneself in others' writing can inspire new ideas. I actually personally lean away from this unless the book is of a completely different genre to the book that I'm writing. AI. This is a newish one that I would treat with caution and a hefty pinch of salt. This one tends to work better for non-fiction or academic writing more than it does for fictional books. Say I have a strong introduction and a solid second paragraph, but I need something to link the two. I could try adding a prompt along the lines of, using the following text, write a small paragraph linking the two, show all references. This will give you something that you can sift through and use as a baseline to kickstart your own writing. Do make sure that you check what information it gives you and make sure that it hasn't pulled anything inaccurate off the internet. Just as a small side note, most of the AI writing tools I've used all have American English punctuation, which is something that I have to change back to British English punctuation. If this is something that is a concern to you, make sure you scan through the wording carefully. That was a lot today, or at least it was for me when I have barely been functional this week. What are your best tips for writer's block? Leave them in the comments below. Subscribe for more content, and thanks for sticking around. Until next time.